Having a streamlined procurement process and a clear procurement strategy is essential to ensure your organization is able to meet its business goals, ranging from profitability to sustainability and more. This is Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement or how to buy consulting services. You'll get tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and managing the consulting. Tips and tricks from the pros. Let's do this. This is Smart Consulting Sourcing. And now your host, Ellen Lafitte.
Hello and welcome back to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. I am Hélène and today we'll be talking about checking references for your consulting services. However, before that, let me give you a recap of last week's podcast. Companies are improving their purchasing skills. However, procurement remains a time-consuming task involving a large amount of data and documentation. While many businesses and services have embraced digital transformation, procurement is still lagging. However, there is a much better future on the horizon. Within the next few years, digital technology will automate most regular procurement activities. With the rapid growth in technological advancements and new procurement practices coming into the spotlight, companies need to keep innovating their work methods and keep up with the global trend to take exclusive benefits of technology to grow their business and outperform the competition. However, this week, I want to discuss about how to check the references for your consulting services. If you're looking for the proper consultant for your next project, you're well aware of how difficult it may be. It's time to choose one of the possible providers you've identified. It's easy to be deceived by flashy websites with full case studies while doing so. Just don't be fooled. Seek at least 2 references from each potential consulting firm to check if they have the skills they claim and you need. Why is it so essential? Because many companies don't check references and believe the words of the consultants. And there is a good chance that they will be disappointed. But let me take it one step further. A consultant isn't only a sum of skills and experience. Some consultants are incredibly technical or focused on the hard aspects, for instance. And some others are more focused on people or the soft elements. Even in a category like operations excellence, you will find consultants that are doers. In other words, they get you the productivity you need, sometimes a bit abruptly. And you will find consultants that are what we call in French papouilleurs or groomers. And they will get everyone aligned on the project and ensure to get the buy-in of both management and operational teams. I was discussing this recently with the strategy director of a French industrial leader. And he was telling me, I would rather have a half-baked solution that is accepted by everyone than a perfect solution that nobody wants. And depending on your project, you might need one or the other. That's why it is essential to know what type of consultants you're dealing with. And you will rarely find that information on their website. Besides, it's not necessarily because they want to fool you on purpose. It's just like when I was in high school. There was that girl who would always cry after an exam because she had done so badly and then get the best grade afterward. We are often terrible judges of our own performance. We either overestimate or underestimate how well we did. And consultants will do the same. The only way to know if a consultant has done an excellent job is to ask former clients what they thought about it. Checking references is just that. And since you cannot measure the quality in consulting and visualize in a beautiful portfolio, you can only grab your phone or your Zoom meeting actually and get the information directly from the source. The honest debate now is not whether you should check reference, but how you should do it. So what's the right moment to check references? Don't wait until you have only one consulting firm to check the references, because the feedback you get from former clients will feed your grading of the different proposals and impact your decision. When you are in your final selection round with 3 to 5 consulting firms at most, organizing a few calls is the right moment. Ideally, just after you have reviewed the last version of their proposal. What question should you ask? Let's go back to what you're trying to achieve. You want to assess if the consulting firms are the right fit for your needs. Ultimately, what you're aiming for is to find the answers to these 3 questions. Have the consultants a good understanding of your situation and the challenge you're trying to solve? Do they have the knowledge and experience to solve the issue? Do you think you'll be able to collaborate with these consultants? That's the notion of fit. The written proposal and the pitch are not always enough to answer these questions. So see the reference as a further dive into a consulting firm's background. Some of your questions will be based on your priorities and apply to all consulting firms. And some will be specific to one consulting firm and the weakness or a gray area that you have identified in their proposal. So how do you build your list of questions? Are your priorities, for example, expertise? Let's imagine that you are looking for expertise in gas distribution in Europe. This is quite precise. Maybe you can make sure that all the consulting firm has experience in this area. Alternatively, maybe you have had a bad experience previously with a consulting firm and you want to look at their capacity to form relationship as well as how effectively they handle their customers. Their project management skills should give you a good notion of how successfully they manage projects and whether they stick to deadlines or not, and their capacity to make an impression. However, there might also be a fog of doubt. And that's where you should make use of the gray areas you've discovered in their offer. Now you think, what can be these gray areas? When you examine the proposal, you may notice certain flaws or have reservation about the consultant's ability to complete the job directly and meet the criteria. This is what I refer to as the gray area. You can build questions out of this reservation. Here you go. You have your list now. Let's call the reference down. How do you get genuine feedback? The first step always is to give a few days to your consulting firm to contact the clients and inform them that you would like to check references. It will ensure higher answer rates, and the former clients will be more comfortable sharing their experience. You can either ask for a traditional phone call, a Zoom meeting, or whatever platform you're using, or send an online survey. Everything works. Be clear on your objective and mindful of your interlocutor's time. Remember, they often have high position in the company, and you might want to consider this before contacting them. You can never ignore politics. Let me tell you now how we check references at Consulting Quest. Beside the above questionnaire, we follow a 4R reference check procedure. What does that mean exactly? The reference must be real, relevant, recent, and related. So let's have a look at real. You look at the background of the reference. Is it a real person? Have they worked in the company mentioned in the reference? Is it a client organization? Yes, these are relevant questions because I've seen consultants giving the name of their colleagues as reference. Of course, this is a huge red flag, unless they were still part of the corporate world at the time and that colleague was their boss. But that's another story. Relevant now. Ensure that the project described as similar to yours because you don't really care if they're good at price and strategy if you are looking for a market entry study. Recent. The reference project must have been completed within a suitable time frame, usually less than 3 years. Some companies give you tens of references, but they are sometimes so old that the consultant didn't take the time to update the logo on their slides. Related. The reference must be about the project manager or the team participating in the project. Consulting performance is strongly related to individual skills, particularly the project managers. So what you're looking for is feedback on this particular project manager, not an anonymous guy who won't participate in the project. By checking references, you can reduce risks and increase the impact of your project. Checking references is an essential step in the consulting procurement process. You will be able to collect precious information to make an informed decision on which consulting firm best fits your needs. You build your questionnaire based on what's essential to you, the primary criteria, and the flows you've identified. Remember to ask the relevant question directly related to your problem and how a consultant with the right set of skills and knowledge can assist you in overcoming. And that marks the end of our podcast, folks. Next week, I will talk about where the consulting industry is going in 2022. So stay tuned. Till then, stay safe and happy sourcing. If you have other questions about the reference checks, remember you can contact me directly on LinkedIn or by email because I'm always game for a chat. Bye and see you next week. Au revoir.
You've been listening to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement and how to buy consulting services. Pro tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and manage it. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten some useful and practical information. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit the website at consultingquest.com. Check out the blog at consulting.wiki and find the ebook Smart Consulting Sourcing, a step-by-step guide to getting the best ROI from your consulting, available on Amazon and other online sellers. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. For questions and comments, send an email to ellen.lafitte@consultingquest.com. See you next time.